Imagine a country so misunderstood that most of the world has never seen a single photograph of its true face. A civilization that invented the garden, the postal system, and algebra, whose poets are still memorized by heart by millions of people who have never set foot inside its borders. A territory where turquoise domes catch the desert light in ways that make the eyes disbelieve what they are seeing, where salt lakes turn pink at sunset, and where underground cities carved beneath the earth housed entire populations for centuries to protect them from invasion. This is Iran. Not the headline. Not the geopolitical abstraction. The actual country, with its impossible architecture, its ancient trade routes, its mathematical precision of ornament, and its landscapes that run from frozen volcanic peaks to subtropical coastlines in the span of a single morning's drive. On this journey, we will move through 10 destinations that make Iran the most visually and historically overwhelming country most travelers have never been permitted to fully see. Before we begin this journey through one of the oldest civilizations on Earth, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. You will not want to miss the next hidden gem on the map. Our first stop drops us into the absolute heart of Persian civilization, Isfahan, a city whose central square, the Naqsh-e is one of the largest and most perfectly proportioned public spaces ever constructed in human history, framed on 4 sides by royal palaces, imperial mosques, and vaulted bazaars, and paved in stone that has absorbed the footsteps of merchants, astronomers, and emperors for over 400 years. At its southern end stands the Iman Mosque, a structure whose interior dome is tiled entirely in intricate blue and gold geometric patterns that create a kaleidoscopic visual effect so overwhelming it silences visitors within seconds of entering. Isfahan was once the capital of the Safavid Empire, a civilization whose artistic ambition matched any in the world at its peak. And walking through its covered bazaars at dusk, with the smell of saffron and rosewater drifting from the spice stalls, is to feel that empire still breathing through its architecture. We travel south to reach the ancient city of Shiraz, the spiritual capital of Persian poetry, a place that has produced 2 of the greatest literary voices in the history of the written world. Hafez and Saadi, poets whose verses are still recited at weddings, funerals, and moments of grief and celebration by Iranians around the globe, were born, lived, and were buried in this city, and their tombs remain among the most visited sites in the country. But Shiraz also holds the Pink Mosque, the Nasir Al-Mulk, a 19th century sanctuary whose interior windows are made of stained glass in deep rose and gold tones, so that when the morning sun strikes them at the right angle, the entire floor of the prayer hall dissolves in a cascade of colored light that turns the stone into something liquid and alive. It is one of the most photographed interiors in the entire Islamic world, and it earns that reputation completely. The landscape opens to a different dimension as we step outside the city gates of Shiraz and enter Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid Empire, the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen at its height. What remains today in the flat desert plain are colossal stone terraces, monumental staircases, and towering columns that once supported the roof of the Apadana, a throne room large enough to hold 10,000 people. The carved bas-relief walls that line the staircases show a procession of delegations from 23 nations of the ancient world, each carved in precise, individual detail with their distinctive clothing, gifts, and facial features, arriving to pay tribute to the King of Kings. Persepolis was burned by Alexander the Great in 330 BCE, and yet what survived that fire remains one of the most monumental archaeological sites in the world, a record in stone of a moment when one civilization touched the edges of the known earth. We shift north now, crossing the Zagros mountain range to reach the extraordinary landscape of the Dasht-e Kavir, the Great Salt Desert, and within it, the city of Yazd. This is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities on Earth. Its mud brick architecture so perfectly adapted to desert conditions that it has functioned without significant alteration for over 3,000 years. Yazd is the global center of Zoroastrianism, one of the world's oldest monotheistic religions, whose sacred fire in the Atash Behram temple has been burning without interruption for over 1,500 years. The city's skyline is defined by wind towers, tall chimney-like structures called badgirs that function as passive air conditioning, capturing breezes from above the rooftop level and channeling them down into the buildings below. A cooling technology so effective it kept desert homes livable long before electricity existed. Our sixth stop carries us into the geological extremes of southern Iran, to the island of Hormuz in the Strait of Hormuz, a place so visually bizarre it appears computer-generated at first sight. The soil of Hormuz Island is saturated with iron oxide, sulfur, and mineral compounds of such variety that the ground changes color across the landscape in bands of deep red, yellow, violet, and white, creating a terrain that looks less like a Mediterranean island and more like the surface of a distant planet. The local fishermen use the red earth as a natural pigment to prepare a traditional dish called saurag, a paste of minerals and spices that is unique to this island and that carries the flavor of the geology directly into the food. Hormuz is not a famous destination. It is barely known outside Iran. But its visual intensity is unlike anything else the natural world offers. We travel northeast to the region of Khorasan to find Mashhad, the second largest city in Iran and one of the holiest sites in Shia Islam, receiving over 25 million pilgrims every year, more than Mecca receives in its non-Hajj months. At the center of Mashhad stands the Imam Reza Shrine, a vast sacred complex of golden domes, mirrored interiors, and courtyard after courtyard of marble and tile, so large that it functions as a city within a city, with its own hospitals, libraries, universities, and bazaars all contained within its walls. The interior of the main shrine is covered floor to ceiling and across every curved surface of its ceiling in mirror mosaic, a technique called Aine Kari, so that every candle and every human face is multiplied infinitely in a dazzling explosion of reflected light that dissolves any sense of physical boundary between the walls and the space beyond them. We descend now toward the Caspian coast in the north, where the climate inverts everything the word Iran suggests to the outside world. The provinces of Gilan and Mazandaran receive more than 2 meters of rainfall annually, producing dense temperate rainforests, rice paddies carved into stepped terraces along steep hillsides, and wooden villages perched above clouds with views of the Alborz mountain range behind them, and the Caspian Sea extending to the horizon in front. The village of Masuleh is built so steeply into a hillside that the rooftop of one house is the pedestrian street of the house above it, a continuous urban staircase in which no motorized vehicle has ever passed. The tea gardens of Gilan produce some of the finest tea in Asia, and the smoked fish of the Caspian coast, dried and sold from wooden stalls along the road to the sea, carry a taste and texture unique to this narrow strip of land between mountain and water. Our penultimate stop brings us to one of the most extraordinary natural phenomena in the country, the pink salt lake of Maharloo, located just outside Shiraz, a shallow inland sea whose water turns a vivid magenta and crimson in late summer and autumn as salt-loving microorganisms bloom in its hypersaline waters. The lake is no more than 2 meters deep in its deepest sections, and at certain times of day, its mirror surface reflects the mountains behind it so perfectly that the horizon line disappears entirely, leaving the impression of a floating world with no ground and no sky, only color. It is the kind of landscape that photographers travel thousands of kilometers to reach, and it exists just minutes from an international airport, entirely overlooked by most travelers who pass through Shiraz on their way to the ruins and the mosques. Finally, we arrive at the crown jewel, the destination that closes this journey with the full force of Iran's geological and human wildness: the Lut Desert, the Dasht-e Lut, one of the largest and most extreme hot deserts on Earth, whose surface has recorded the highest land surface temperature ever measured by satellite, reaching over 70 degrees Celsius, a heat so intense that bacteria cannot survive in the deepest sections of the plain. But the visual drama of the Lut is not its heat, it is its yardangs, a vast field of wind-carved rock towers rising from the desert floor in shapes so dramatic and improbable. They look like the ruins of a civilization built at a scale too large for human hands. These formations, some reaching over 40 meters in height, extend across hundreds of kilometers of total silence, orange and gray and streaked with mineral shadows. And at sunrise, when the low light rakes across their faces and the shadow they cast stretches to the edge of vision, the Lut Desert produces a visual experience that makes every superlative in every language feel immediately insufficient. Iran is a country that contains more layers of civilization, more extremes of landscape, and more visual beauty than almost any nation on Earth. And it remains, for now, one of the least understood frontiers in global travel. Now it is your turn to decide. If you could visit only one of these 10 extraordinary places, which one would you choose, and why? Leave your answer in the comments and tell us where you want the map to take you next.